I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.
All right, you're just back from Monterey, and I have been watching your Instagram feed with a certain degree of jealousy and interest. No, I mean, I got to ask about some of the stuff you were doing there. It looked amazing.
Ask me anything.
And we're also going to talk with Keith Naughton because Ford came out with another bombshell this week. But the shares actually were up. So
counterintuitive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the thing is they've reduced their spending on EVs from 40% of CapEx to 30%. So even though they're going to take a big charge, $400 million, and it's going to cost them another $1.5 billion to sort of retool everything, investors were pleased. And that's much better than what happened over earnings or the last time they said they were going to take a big loss. Remember, they said last year they're going to lose $4.5 billion. On EVs. This year, you're going to lose $5.5 billion on EVs. So
that's just painful.
It's painful. Luckily, they're making money still with their gas trucks, and hopefully they make a lot of money with Mustangs too, because you don't want those to go away.
Well, I mean, I don't think they are. For me, from a product perspective, it's always very troubling anytime a company delays and then just decides to not make a product they've been gunning for.
True,
so
but better
long,
not
devoting so many resources to.
Better not to make it.
Oh yeah, the first loss is the best loss.
Yeah, exactly.
As they say.
You definitely want to be able to cut your losses. You need to know when to fold them.
Completely.
Know when to walk away and know when to run.
Is that a Johnny Cash song?
No, it's Kenny Rogers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my mom would have known that. Yeah.
All right, so first I want to ask, and then I want to get to the auctions as well, so I know what happened.
I love auctions.
I haven't looked into it, but I did see you were driving the like a pre-war Maybach.
Oh, yes.
Your outfit was awesome.
Thanks.
And it looked like super fun. Was it different than driving like a modern car? Did you have to screw around with a bunch of different valves and stuff?
Oh, my gosh. So this was a 1932 Maybach Zeppelin, and it's a semi-automatic transmission. I apologize because the person who taught me how to drive it, his name was Manfred, and he was a wonderful German man, but his English was better than my German, but it still was a little confusing. So I'm not sure about I did figure it out in the end and drove it, but the transmission is considered semi-automatic, which is pretty incredible to consider that Maybach was making automatic transmissions in the 30s. But you use a clutch to go into first gear and to go into reverse. Other than that, you change gears by moving these tiny levers on the steering wheel. And there's some hydraulic vacuum system that shifts gears for you once you're in gears 2, 3, 4.
Interesting.
Basically. You're just literally like moving these levers along a little dial to shift, and you just take your foot off the accelerator and the thing shifts for you using a vacuum.
It's kind of like a motorcycle. So a lot of motorcycles now are fitted with auto blip. Clutches. You can go up and down without using the clutch, but from neutral to first or first to neutral, you still need to usually use the clutch.
Yeah. I have to say, I have driven a Model T before, so this wasn't really. I have driven old cars before, but there is something so special about getting into these huge, heavy pre-war vehicles that just, those guys didn't care about anything. They just live life. And, there's such a sense of arrival. I was in the DS8 Zeppelin that Maybach made in like 1930 to 1932 or so. It's a V12. Wow. It weighs like 6,000 pounds. I mean, it is just
nice.
Trying to turn the thing was more weightlifting than I've done in the past 3 years on my arms.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was cool.
Turning it sounds like a bear, but I just love the idea of those huge, and it was an open top.
Yeah.
Roadster.
Open top.
I guess is maybe not the right word for it, but it was. I love those pre-war cars, and I feel like
me too.
You're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars to get into that. Because there's so few left, and it's a hobby for very rich people. Millions of dollars. But here's the funny thing, and maybe this is our segue into auctions. Pre-war
vehicles are really not doing well at auction. I mean, they used to be the top dollar, and people don't care as much about them.
So I didn't see any auction results, but it was a pre-war Bugatti that won the Pebble Beach Concorde Elegance, right?
Yeah, it won the car show beauty contest for sure. It's a beautiful, unrestored.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
Was it Type 59, I think?
Yeah, that sounds about right. And Bugatti is such a long established old brand with some of the world's most beautiful cars. So that's really wonderful. But of course, the top sellers, I think 6 of the top 10 sellers at auction were Ferraris. And so even though blue chip cars did take a real hit this year, Ferraris are still really top dog.
When we were talking last week, you mentioned that you have a guy that gave you all the data, and 10 years ago, 1964 was the average age that sold at auction, and this
71.
last year it was 1971. Yeah. So were the Ferraris newer Ferraris, or were they also the old, like super expensive
They're
ones?
the old, super expensive things. But then we did see some things jump, like a 1995 Ferrari F50 set a world record for F50s. And really and that car has been painted and repainted. It certainly wasn't a perfect example, but I think that sale shows that vehicles made in the 90s and 2000s are really coming into their own. They're really on the rise. The sell-through rate of cars valued at $1 million or more this year was like 50%, which means 1 out of 2 of those cars didn't even sell, which is really low. It's really bad. But when you see, the sales of Lamborghini Diablos, Gallardos, Murciélagos, all doing very well, and let's not forget the whole desire for stick shifts. Those are up. They're selling for like $500,000 and over $1 million. There's really a shift happening. It's kind of cool. I mean, I like those cars too.
By the way, you wanted to see the Diablo that this new company is kind of like
Eccentrica
retro modding.
Yeah.
How was it? Did you see it?
It's cool. Yeah, I saw it. It was in this really cool plum purple color, like a very deep purple that looked kind of black under shade. Super cool. The interior was all white. This is Mauricio Reggiani's project. He's consulting on it, and of course that's the former head of R&D for Lamborghini, so he's a genius. So anything he is working on, I definitely want to see. Those are, I think the price tag on those is about 1.3 million euros. They won't tell me how many they have sold. I know they were taking orders this week. That was a really big goal for them to try to get some sales going. So I don't actually know. It's still pretty early. But I did see it. It's cool. I mean, they've improved they tell me, I haven't driven it, but they've improved obviously the gearbox, the steering, the brakes, all of the things that made that car feel like a tractor to drive in the original form. They claim they've improved, so we'll see. I'd like to get in it and drive it. I wasn't given that opportunity, unfortunately.
For me, the tractor-like quality of the Aventador transmission was really one of the beautiful things about it. I loved it.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring in Keith Naughton. He's our Ford reporter in Detroit, and I want to get the Ford story because it's so interesting that they're changing things around, canceling some models, moving some back, but also bringing in a new technology that Jim Farley talked a lot with you and I about last time he was on. Here's Keith Naughton. Keith, there was a fascinating story a couple of days ago about Ford, again, changing its EV strategy. I know you spoke with the CEO and the CFO. What did they have to say for themselves?
Well, Jim Farley, Ford CEO, says he thinks they've got it right this time, and this is the new precise plan. What did he call it? He said it's the exact right plan, and that he's very confident that it'll work this time. As you know, Ford got caught up in the hype cycle 2-3 years ago, coming out of the pandemic, and started building battery factories, built its first new assembly plant in 50 years down in Tennessee. They have built up so much capacity for electric vehicles that is no longer needed. Now they're trying to recalibrate, retrench, find a new way.
Can I just ask your own personal opinion? How do we know they have it right this time? I mean, are you sensing anything different?
We don't know that they have it right this time. They're still banking on growth. But the problem is, while EV sales are up this year, two things. One, the price of EVs is down by 20%. So it's very, very hard to make a buck on EVs, which is not a great motivator for developing more EVs, right? Which is why Ford canceled the 3-row SUV electric that they were going to make. They're very far down the road with that. It's going to cost them almost $2 billion to cancel that program. Not something they wanted to do. So, the EV business case is not great. Also, a big reason for that, EV demand is still not great. So the first half of the year, EVs accounted for 9.7% of the U.S. market. Another way to look at that is more than 9 out of 10 cars sold in America so far this year have been traditional internal combustion engine vehicles or hybrids, mostly internal combustion engine vehicles. Last year's EV market penetration was the same, 7.8%. It's below 8%. And so, EVs, particularly in the United States, but really globally, have seriously slowed down as we've reached mainstream buyers.
So they're growing still, but they're just not growing as quickly as these companies would like them to. Certainly their investment in EVs isn't justified by the growth that they're seeing. And what about hybrids? I mean, you've been reporting, Keith, a lot about hybrids. I've read stories that, buyers are more interested in hybrids, at least, and that's a greener, solution at the tailpipe than traditional gas vehicles for the most part. So is Ford going to start building more hybrids? I mean, when Jim Farley was on this podcast with Hannah and myself, he was all revved up on e-revs.
Right. And absolutely. Hybrids are hot and everybody is trying to build more of them. Ford is doubling its hybrid capacity for the F-150. The F-150 hybrid is going gangbusters, as is the Mavericks, the tiny truck, the compact pickup truck that Ford offers as a hybrid. So hybrids are hot. And then, yes, that specific new kind of hybrid, the extended range electric vehicle, the e-Rev, that really isn't for sale in the United States right now. Farley's very hot on it. Stellantis, Chrysler parent Stellantis, has a e-Rev version of its Ram pickup truck coming next year called the Ram Charger that it says will go 690 miles on a charge. As you guys know, an e-Rev runs primarily on electricity, but there is a small internal combustion engine whose only job is to recharge the battery. It doesn't drive the wheels. So you can go very far in an e-Rev and have very low CO2 output.
So I'm curious, what are the chances that General Motors follows suit here? We see Ford pulling back. Can we expect to see GM now canceling some planned EV launches that they have in the near future?
Hannah, they've already delayed programs. They've delayed the electric Silverado several times now. So I think they're already pulling back. I don't know if they'll do it in such a sort of comprehensive fashion as Ford announced this week. Ford, as you guys recall, a couple of years ago, carved off its EV business into its own separate unit that they call Model E.
That's very clever, by the way. Before we just gloss over, that's incredibly clever, right?
It is. Yeah. The Model T company has a Model E unit.
I love it.
Sadly, the Model E unit is projected by Ford to lose as much as $5.5 billion this year. That's not really what they planned. So because they have this, stronger spotlight on this separate unit, it's kind of incumbent on them to explain how they're going to eventually make money in that unit. Well, they still won't say when Model E will be profitable, but they now say when they launch a new EV, it must be profitable within its first year. Otherwise, they won't approve the program. That's why they killed the electric SUV. They have a new mid-size electric pickup truck coming in 2027 that is going to be profitable, they say, in its first year. It comes out of this, what they call Skunkworks project in California, that's developing a new low-cost EV platform that they say will offer a number of models, from $25,000 up.
What is the Skunk Works? I heard that too. I was on the phone with Barbosa the other night, and he mentioned it. I thought Skunk Works was like, a secret room in the building where you have the smartest nerds developing like a super fast race car, right? Isn't Skunk Works traditionally where you develop like the special version of a car? What are they doing there in California?
Yeah, so it's separated out in Irvine, California. Alan Clark, who had been Tesla's chief engineer on the Model Y, leads the program. It's only 100 people, which is very small for a car program. And they're really approaching it very differently. It's been going for about 2.5 years. It was going in secret for a long time, but then as Ford needed to talk about something positive, they revealed that this was
convenient
in the works. Yeah, isn't it? And so it really operates differently. It's cross-functional, small, dedicated, focused team. So that's why they call it a skunkworks, Matt. They feel like it's in the tradition of the, kind of garage built, invented product.
The other thing I'm wondering about, Keith, is, how much of a hit is this for Ford? Can they just kind of, absorb the losses and keep moving forward? Or is this really a significant setback that will affect them for years to come?
Well, remember how crushed their stock got on earnings last time.
Right.
I think they were literally decimated in terms of market cap being reduced by more than a tenth.
Right. So they cannot lose $5 billion plus on their EV for years to come. So they really need to turn that around. Also, getting a profitable EV business is essential to surviving and thriving into the future. It's not like this EV slowdown means that EVs are dead or that EVs aren't going to happen. They are going to happen. You just need to find a business case to do them profitably. And right now, what it appears and what Ford is pursuing is, mainstream consumers need a bridge to EVs. They're not going to go EV cold turkey. So if you can give them an EREV or even just a traditional hybrid or a plug-in hybrid that, gets them a little electrified, or in the case of an EREV, a lot electrified, then they realize they can do this. If you use an EREV, for example, you're going to drive around on electric power 95% of the time, and you're going to come to realize, you know what? I don't need this internal combustion engine backup. I can go all battery. Maybe it takes you a generation or even two of driving a vehicle like that, but it gets you there.
Baby steps.
Right. And so just flipping a switch and going from ICE, internal combustion engine, to fully battery electric vehicle, that's asking a lot of mainstream consumers, particularly when EVs come at a very high cost premium.
So let's talk for a second about the models that they either canceled or delayed. Starting with the 3-row SUV. Was that going to be just like an Expedition, like an electric Expedition, or did we have a name for that? Have you seen what it was going to look like?
They didn't give a name or really let us see it, but the implication and the buzz you heard in the industry was it was really more like an Explorer, which, is 3 rows as well. So not quite the size of an Expedition, which is the Ford version of the Lincoln Navigator. I don't know which one of those is more famous, maybe the Navigator. That's a really big vehicle. And as you guys know, the bigger the vehicle, the bigger the battery you need to run it. And the battery is the most costly component of an electric vehicle. That's why big SUVs electrified doesn't pencil right now. Battery technology has not reached a point where you can make a profit on a really huge battery. Not to mention that it adds a lot of weight to the vehicle, which is, never a positive for drive, handling, environmental friendliness, any of those things.
And then the truck.
Yeah, where does that leave
by the way,
truck?
Hannah, did you saw the new Lincoln Navigator at
Yes,
Monterey,
I did.
right?
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. Cool.
And I like gigantic.
And you'll notice that Ford is still not offering a hybrid version of the Lincoln Navigator, and they're not offering an electric version of Lincoln Navigator for the reasons we're discussing.
Will there be? Is there a
batteries
V8 at least in the Navigator, or do they still make you? Usually Ford's thing is with the exception of the Mustang, right? They drop the V8 and they try and convince themselves and consumers that we can do okay with a 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6, but it's just
which has been wildly successful, Matt, in the F-150. They sell more 6s than 8s in the F-150.
Well, because they don't really offer you much of a choice. You can't get the 6.2 that you could in the first generation Raptor. You have to get either the 3.5 liter V6, which, to be honest, it's not a great experience driving, in my personal opinion. It's just you don't have the fullness, you don't have the warmth of a V8. You can feel that it's a kind of a wimpy little V6, and the only way you can step up is you want to spend $110,000 and get the Raptor R. But I'm going on a rant here. The new
warmth is a good word for it, Matt, as in global warming. So perhaps they don't offer big V8s because the EPA frowns on them.
Right. I mean,
minor detail.
I mean, to save 1 mile a gallon.
So let's remember the environment. Let's not forget the environment.
All right. So let's
right?
So the environment's going to love, I'm sure, the new F-150. Is it going to be the one built in Tennessee? They're not going to come out until 2027. But is this going to be a total departure from the current F-150?
The current F-150 Lightning, do you mean? The current electric version?
No.
Because
I mean, just in general, from the body, the functionality, the capability, because they're talking about this new truck that'll be built in Tennessee as a completely different vehicle, right?
Right, and it is ground up, brand new, purpose-built electric vehicle. It will have lots of it'll be a connected, software-driven vehicle. Farley has said you'll be able to drive, I don't know if drive's the right word, be behind the steering wheel in it without your hands on the, operate without your hands on the wheel or even looking out the windshield. You can take eyes off the road and do your email, have a Zoom, whatever, while you're in this next gen electric F-150. So it's going to be very advanced, but again, big vehicle, big battery. So one of the big reasons they've pushed it back is they need new battery technology to develop that's cheaper. They have this LFP battery plant coming online in Michigan that uses the battery chemistry that is significantly lower cost. That could end up in the F-150. It probably will. And they have other battery chemistries coming that are lower cost. That's one of the reasons they pushed it back. They're trying to make a business case out of the thing. It's going to fall under the same new rule that it must be profitable within the first year on the market. And the current F-150 Lightning is not profitable, and the current Mach-E is not profitable.
If you log on to your Bloomberg, Keith, you'll see I just put in an IB chat a great chart that shows Ford margins versus GM margins and Tesla margins. I was surprised to see GM margins are so fat. They're right up there with Tesla at 19%, and Ford, these are operating margins, obviously. Ford is down below 10. So they really need to fight their way back up to the other two American car makers.
They sure do. And, GM is saying their EVs will be profitable by the end of this year. I can't give you the math on that because I don't think they've provided the math on that, but that is what they're saying. So, Ford is losing its shirt on electric vehicles right now. Our Bloomberg Intelligence says they're for the first half of the year, they lost more than $68,000 on every EV they sold.
Good to get the intel. Good intel.
Yeah, good intel.
And great story, great reporting. I'm glad you could join us, Keith, and
Thank
I
you.
look forward to continuing to read your byline every day. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, Matt.
Great talking
Thanks,
with
Hannah.
you.
If you have any questions for us, suggestions or criticisms or compliments, you can email us at
hotpursuit@bloomberg.net. I had to think about it for a second.
Yeah, I always forget it too.
hotpursuit@bloomberg.net. And we do read and respond to your emails. We love to hear from you.
Yes, we do. Hotpursuit@bloomberg.net. What are you doing? What have you got for this week coming up?
You know what? This weekend, I hope to do a lot of nothing.
Me
nothing,
too.
nothing. Yeah. I mean, it's just like the past 2 weeks have gone by in a snap. So I'm hoping to really veg out.
All right, I'm going to Spain, but I'll call you from there.
Oh, you got to pick the girls up.
Yes, I'll be
Cool.
in Valencia next time we speak.
What a
but
guy.
I'm looking forward to it. That's all we got for this week. We'll be back same time, same place next week. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Bloomberg.